Hi, this is Sanjay, and joining me are my two friends, Vikram and Utkarsh. Vikram,
Hey
say
guys,
hello.
welcome to the podcast.
Utkarsh, say
Hello,
hello.
guys. Welcome here.
Yeah. So, okay, starting. Let me ask you, both of you, one basic question. I guess you should be able to answer this. Uh, how much? How? What is the amount of materials? And when I talk about materials, asking you different aspects of materials, and how many layers do you think is involved in making just a small house, maybe a bungalow, a one-story bungalow? So, how many material do you think? Just a normal question. You must have seen.
Three, three, three.
Maybe 10?
Yeah. What are those three?
Water, sand, and stone.
That's a very limited understanding. I think so. You're living in a cave. You're living in some cave. Okay. I would ask. Okay,
And
Vikram,
and and
what is your
ambition.
thought?
So four.
Okay. Okay. That's a very.
Guys, that's like saying the
The
secret
answer
ingredient is
seems.
love.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no, no,
Exactly.
no.
Khana.
This
It's
is
like
this
food
is
is
2020. So
food. It's like food can be awful, but you need love in that food. That's what you're trying to
yes.
say. Okay. So Vikram, what do you think? What are the materials?
So, water, sand, stones, as Utkarsh already mentioned, maybe plaster,
Okay.
metal, RCC rods, and cement.
No,
Okay. Okay.
I
Better.
mentioned how
I
to make
guess.
cement.
I
Sorry.
guess. Firstly, let me correct your thoughts, Utkarsh. It's not cement. How do you make concrete? Cement is already produced by cement
See, this
factories.
shows that how
So,
I am a outsider for this.
okay. So let me. So I why I brought you in this question is I want to tell you like how a blueprint of the drawings, an architect will fed a blueprint of the drawings to a system, to a machine, and the machine will build a structure straight away without with very few human interaction, and like with high speed and with high accuracy. And that brings to my point, that is 3D printing. So obviously we have heard about 3D printing in different areas, like in medical, we have had in automobile, and now it's laying its stone on on civil engineering. And that's like bringing tech into our market.
But I guess that
So
as a
yeah.
structural engineer, your work still will have
Yeah.
to you have to make sure that the structure created by those machines are strong enough, right?
Yes, exactly. So it doesn't negate the technical aspects of the work, but it will definitely reduce, if 3D printing comes into picture, it will definitely reduce the labor, the non-skilled workers into the
So,
industry.
basically, instead
So
of
that's
creating a
something.
structure, you'll have to be careful that the blueprint that you fed is basically possible to construct as a structural engineer. It is supported by the design and construction techniques.
Exactly. Yeah, you get it right. So, construction scale. So there are different aspects, as I was mentioning in 3D printing. So right now, one of the aspects is basic 3D printing. They have already started doing it. Is by basic cement and cement mortar and mixture. And as Utkarsh mentioned, is basic structural engineering work. So all it's a very basic research, not basic. It's a very in depth research which goes on in the material side of the picture rather than on the design side, because now you have to make sure that the material which is coming out of 3D printing, which is the cement mortar, is has a higher capacity to take that building structural load.
But what is
And
that
yeah,
material that is used in 3D printing?
it's so basically now for it's a mixture actually. It consists of a lot of so a concrete is made up of as in basic knowledge, it's made up of three materials, that is sand, you have aggregates, and then you have water and you have cement. But now to make a 3D printing concrete or mortar, you need you need to add more material which can which can create more strength. And concrete as a material, concrete expands and shrinks. So if so that's like a challenge, that's like a biggest challenge right now in one of the industry in our industry, where the cracks induced by this shrink and expansion of concrete, which and there's a lot of research going on in that area, so as to reduce corrosion in
And that
steel
wax can be as
or
strong
like
as
ocean.
your typical material?
You're saying the material motor made of for 3D printing?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, but as I said, the research is only like, even now they are not aiming for high rise structures like even three floors.
Right.
I guess it's very limited right now to like 1 story and 2 story. It's a very the research is like, it's very debatable, because what really happens in civil engineering industry is, if a new technology which comes into picture, it takes the industry as a whole. Sometimes it's not as how should I call it? It's not like uh, it's not as fast to adapt sometimes new technologies or new techniques as other industries, especially computer science. Like, for example, if some new softwares, or if some mm, new chip comes into your industry, it can technically replace, or it can change your industry in like 2 years, right? But it's not the same. Today buildings are still made in the same way as they are made like 100 years before. They have done a lot of research, and they have changed in their process. Well, the same is for 3D printing. So the biggest challenge for 3D printing is, firstly, is to adapt the regulation. So none of the regulations currently support 3D printing. It's still in a very research stage. When a building is made, it's supported by different codes. It's supported by different like checks and designs, obviously. So these all constitutes, and then a design is prepared, and then obviously in construction stage you have different checks. But when you think about bringing a machine, when you say, okay, I'll fed the blueprint into the machine, and that machine will bring, obviously you are increasing the speed, and the speed, for example, as far as in China, I know in China they built a house in 20 hours, and like in a day. uh, a basic house, which would take, like, if you're building it by concrete or bricks, it could take like 6 months, but you can now build it in like 1 or 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, waste reduction, like construction industry, it's said that 40% of the waste created in the world is from construction industry, and this could reduce like waste reduction to very large extent. So that's like one of and this is a sustainable topic, as we were talking about in the previous podcast 3 about sustainability, and I would ask people to watch that podcast. But as we were talking about sustainability, this could help a big way in
Oh, yeah,
sustainability.
that's a very good point.
And now, yeah,
So the
yeah, and
material,
design
so the
freedom.
material is itself is going to be eco-friendly, and the ideal situation would be not just eco-friendly, but as strong as your typical material that you use now, and the buildings itself can be sustainable. That's a
Yes.
right.
So you can have different. So now what happens in a 3D printing is like, you have different architecture. You have a blueprint. Now the machine can actually take care of different things of architecture across that whole different things of architecture across the whole ecosystem. So you have an ecosystem. For example, you have to build a sustainable building. You can have an ecosystem for solar. You can have an ecosystem for uh, water reduction. But basically, when I talk about reducing the waste, I majorly talk about construction material. So construction materials, like, I'll just give you a small like, this is our like thumb rule we use. So if we are calculating a quantity, we take 30% extra in every quantity. So it's like, for example, if I have calculated a quantity from 1,000 cubic feet, that's
Right.
the volume we use. So I would add 30% as an extra. That's just we just add 30% because we knew it's gonna go. There will be waste creation. There will be stuff. So that is the amount of waste we
Right.
construction industry. It could be in all the material. It could be in cement. It could be in sand. It could be in water. But with this 3D printing, we could reduce all those factors very considerably.
Yeah.
So that's something, according to me, it's a very big advantage in this technology. So yeah, and one more is design freedom. So there are many designs. As a designer myself, I could say, like very complex designs needs lot of even if like if even if we design it, the construction of those complex design architectures, it takes a lot of human effort. It takes a lot of technology, a lot of skills, a lot of money goes into making that design possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
With this technology, 3D printing, we could actually build those design very, like it could be built very simply.
So you
So it's
have
not
you
it's not
when you have different kind of fantasies, you can actually make it
correct. Yes.
through 3D printing.
Yes. So, like a small example, like building an arch. Before, like now they have good technology and they have good ideas about how to build an arch. But building an arch, if you can imagine building a dome and an arch,
Yeah.
I sometimes, I cannot imagine like in 1600 or in 1500 how they must have built those structures, because they didn't have. I was like, I'm always astonished by seeing those structures. But now, with even now, if you ask building a dome or analyzing, yeah, it's simple because now we have that much amount, but it's still a challenge for us.
Right.
But with this technology, we don't have to worry about
Because I was
those
watching
structures.
a series on Netflix, which was the
Yeah.
Unbelievable or Incredible Homes, and there was a house
Okay.
in the shape of S, and I can't imagine
Oh,
how difficult it is to build something which is as
exactly.
beautiful and as
Yes.
complex.
And what if I say that now, if I could feed that whole blueprint or the design to a machine, and the machine will take care of that shape, you don't really have to worry about the shape.
I would say,
So how
when can
the
I order it?
yeah. So that's something it's how that's one of the advantages. And obviously the third is human error. So we in our design, especially as a designer, I could say in our design we use a lot of factor of safety. That's to account for human error, because we know human as a like skilled, or whether skilled or an unskilled level, there's gonna be error on the side. So we account for all those error and we use a very high factor of safety. Like a factor of safety is basically, for example, if I say you apply, if in very layman terms, I could say, for example, a table can take 10 kgs of load. So I would say that I'll divide that 10 kg by 2 and I'll say, okay, the table can only take 5 kg of load. Why? Because I am accounting for all those errors which the manufacturer must have taken in making that table, right? It could be the nails, maybe the nails are gone or something, maybe the material is not that. So now I'm saying that only 5 kg, the table can only take 5, but the technical table can take 10 kgs. But we account for all those errors. But if you're using a machine, you could actually reduce that factor of safety to like, now if it's 1.5, you can actually reduce down to 1.1. You can still have that 0.1% as a machine error, but you are technically reducing as much human error as possible. So yeah, so like these advantages of 3D printing are actually, for me, if this technology really brings out something, like if this really evolves better, because this is still in a very nascent research stage. Obviously they have already like already a building like there's already a building like two-story building recently completed in Dubai. But if you ask me as a engineer, as a civil engineer, I still believe it's a very nascent stage, because you will see structures built by plastic.
Right.
uh, you will see photos, you will see news like, okay, someone built a building by plastic, but how can you really replicate that on a larger scale? that's something that's a big challenge, I would say.
So
As being a civil engineer myself, I can understand that, because replicating any such technology with no rules and regulation, because there is no regulation. If I'm right now designing, there's a lot of regulation which goes into picture. There's boards, there's government regulations, and you build a building accordingly. But now, if I talk about 3D printing, where there's no codes, there's no regulations, uh, it's something which right now very countries with very advanced research, or where they can take a risk on that, can actually build ahead, and can only be built on a very small scale where it's very
So
safe.
Sanjay,
Right.
are you
So
basically
Asking,
saying that 3D printed buildings cannot be put to the same standards as traditionally constructed buildings, or do you think we need different kind of standards based on the construction mechanism?
mm, I would say it's both. So you cannot put the same standards right now for 3D printing building. That's correct, because right now there's a lot of still research. So as I said, right now, generally the 3D, as I said, mentioned that it's built for only two-story buildings, or some first they have built like small structures, but it's not really made up for like big structures, because they're still in a very nascent stage of how the how to work around, for example, how to work around the steel. So in your whole buildings and concrete buildings and RCC structure, which is reinforced concrete structures, you have you have steel inside, beams and columns. So how would this machine work around those steels and columns? Can Because you can't really 3D print the steels, because as a civil engineer, I can't imagine. So obviously you need skilled laborers to put those steels, and then you will have a machine which will be 3D printing around those steels. But to be frank, still that research is still in a very nascent stage. So you really don't know how it's going to interact with other, because if you ask me, if you want to build a 5-story structure, I don't think so. A 3D printing building, or even 5-story or a higher structure, I don't think so. It's right now the research has gone to a level where it can build
So
that.
basically, it
But
might be a tricky
but
thing to construct
exactly,
buildings or
yeah.
structures that involve a wide variety of materials.
Firstly,
You're saying.
yeah. Firstly, if you ask me, in my opinion, I don't think so. The the regulations have, as mentioned, the regulations are not there. So I don't think so. It's going to be allowed, firstly, to build these structures in any government, even like in any country, according to
Okay.
me. For high rise, I'm talking about, because you need a proper regulation for building anything. Like, even if you're building like a small 1-story house, there are different types of regulation. So as I mentioned, they must have done this on a research level, where they must have understood, okay, the structures are feasible to a certain extent, so let's just go ahead and just build the first 3D printing building. And the first, so it's a start to a technology change. And if you ask me, it's a big change for me, because uh 3D printing in a building, and the how my industry runs over the years, and introducing a new technology which could actually, now you're actually feeding it to a machine, and a machine can build. I could have never imagined 3D printing in building. Many people thought that, okay, we know that it's going to be the next step, but now if you see, there are buildings, as I talked about the Dubai ones, there are buildings
but there
like
is
in China.
a very clear limitation that right now it's only a building which has one floor or two floor, right? Right now we can't
Yes,
build a high rise
yes, yeah.
skyscraper.
Uh, there are 3D printing 5-story buildings, but blocks. But to be frank, even that's the maximum you can reach,
Right.
and you can have 5-story buildings. You can have five, because in America you have 4-story, 3-story buildings of wood. Obviously, there is a whole regulation, as I mentioned. There is
So
a whole
that's
regulation for wood design, which takes into care of whole design of those wood structures. But
that's the big
there
challenge
are
that I
five.
see. That
Yes, that's the
with
that
all the population which is here on Earth, the only way
correct.
what we are seeing is up. The the high skyscrapers will be the only solution to reside all those populations that we have. So if we are able to
But
solve this problem through 3D printing
yeah.
and machines, I think that would be
Oh,
the best solution
so
for us.
because as I mentioned, speed, waste
Yeah,
reduction, design freedom, and reduce of human error. These
yeah,
four things, it's actually difficult to achieve all these four things. Uh, when it comes to if I say building by humans, but with 3D printing in all these four in all aspects, you are able to achieve efficiency.
right.
Obviously, as I mentioned, when talk about speed, its biggest enemy it's its high cost. So right now the research is such in a nascent stage, or it's going on because the machines which build these structures or uh, are expensive, obviously, because they are in a very reason. So they are not like cheap buildings. And quality control is right now, it's the research is going on, but you really don't have enough control over the quality. Like, you are serving, but you don't have enough checks over the quality. And thirdly, I would say it's the regulations, as there is no proper regulation about, because we need codes, we need some direction about how these buildings will be built. So there are no regulations right now. There's shortage of regulations in their aspects. So these three are the challenges, and if we are able to surpass this challenge in future, uh,
But this
like
is the
maybe
future, certainly,
you'll
right?
yeah, the whole technology of 3D printing, according to me, why I call it as disruptive, because it's something which can actually, if in future this really holds good, it can actually disrupt the whole system of ours, because no one can imagine like in future just feeding a design to a machine and like
Yeah.
everything is done. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of if you ask me, there's a lot of research and time it's going to go
I think if we are able
behind this.
to
And
tackle the challenges that you just mentioned, like high cost, not being able to construct super complex designs, I think this could be one of the coolest technologies that we might have around ourselves. Because imagine reconstructing an entire village in just a matter of few weeks, because you have n number of machines that you just feed the blueprints to, and that it just takes off. So I think this could be a really cool technology to have in the future.
exactly, it's they say that it could solve the housing problem. 3D printing could actually solve the housing problems. There are articles about
Imagine Burj Khalifa in small towns in India. Oh, that would be so cool.
yeah, but that's like a very high shot for this technology yet, I would say.
But as I said, that you
Yeah.
need ambition as your layer in building a house.
Yeah, but yeah, speed is its one of the biggest advantages. Like, it could reduce 2 weeks
Yes.
of job in 3 to 4 days, and waste reduction, as I mentioned, 40% of waste reduction. It's considered like 40% of the waste is by construction industry, and if you could reduce that, that's a very huge amount of waste reduction. You're doing a huge benefit to the environment, and
Right.
you're trying to create a better sustainable environment.
Yeah.
So according to me, if you ask me, even in the advantage, I consider these 2 points are very high. And with the current code and practices, everything, yeah, they are trying to regulate all these things, but we all know, if a machine comes into picture, now you are doing now there are robots doing surgeries. And so we know, like, a human and a robot, there is a difference in the precision, there is a difference in how accurate the work can be done. So yeah, that's something which I am really looking forward as a civil engineer for this technology. I really want to know how this how its future is going to go. So
Cool.
yeah, so thank you. So that's all I have from my side on this topic. So thank you, guys, thank you for joining me. And please subscribe to our podcast. If you like this, please comment what do you think about this technology. Do let me know in the comments, and do let us know what are the future topics you would like us to speak on. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.